of his daughter, Sati. Okay, so text 29 says, it was astonishing that Daksha, who was Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter, Sati, who was not only chaste, but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Very interesting. See my pencil here somewhere. No. There.
You can continue. I'll bring it.
Okay, so today we're hearing from Canto 4, Chapter 4, text number 30. Oh, yeah.
It's a different one.
Oh, different. Okay. Let's okay. So, Canto 4, Chapter 4, text number 29. It was astonishing that Daksha, who was Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter, Sati, who was not only chaste, but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Well, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word anatmya is significant. Atmya means the life of the soul. So this word indicates that although Daksha appeared to be living, actually he was a dead body. Otherwise, how could he neglect Sati, who was his own daughter? It was the duty of Daksha to look after the maintenance and comforts of all living entities, because he was situated as Prajapati. Yeah, that's right. The governor of all living entities. Therefore, how is it that he neglected his own daughter, who was the most exalted and chaste woman, a great soul, and who therefore deserved the most respectful treatment from her father? The death of Sati, because of her being neglected by Daksha, her father, was most astonishing to all great demigods of the universe. All right, text 30. Daksha, who was also so hard-hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmana, will gain extensive ill fame because of his offenses to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Daksha is described here as most hard-hearted and therefore unqualified to be a Brahmana. Brahmana Duruk is described by some commentators to mean Brahmana Bandhu, or friend of the Brahmanas. A person who is born in a Brahmana family but has no Brahminical qualifications is called a Brahma Bandhu. Brahmanas are generally very soft-hearted and forbearing because they have the power to control the senses and the mind. Daksha, however, was not forbearing for the simple reason that his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, did not stand up to show him the formality of respect. He became so angry and hard-hearted that he tolerated even the death of his dearest daughter, Sati. That he tolerated even the death of his dearest daughter. Sati tried her best to mitigate the misunderstanding between the son-in-law and the father-in-law by coming to her father's house, even without an invitation. And at that time, Daksha should have received her daughter, forgetting all past misunderstandings. But he was so hard-hearted that he was unworthy to be called an Aryan or Brahmana. Thus, his ill fame is still continues. Daksha means expert, and he was given this name because of his ability to beget many hundreds and thousands of children. Persons who are too sexually inclined and materialistic become so hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige that they can tolerate even the death of their children. Wow, what a terrible way to live. Text number 31. While people were talking among themselves about the wonderful voluntary death of Sati, the attendants of who had come with her readied themselves to kill Daksha with their weapons. Well, purport by Srila Prabhupada. The attendants who came with Sati were meant to protect her from calamities. But since they were unable to protect their master's wife, they decided to die for her. And before dying, they wanted to kill Daksha. It is the duty of attendants to give protection to their master. And in case of failure, it is their duty to die. Text 32. They came forward forcibly, but Bhrigu Muni saw the danger and offering oblations into the southern side of the sacrificial fire. He immediately uttered mantric hymns from the Yajurveda, by which the destroyers of the yajnik performances could be killed immediately. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is one example of powerful hymns in the Vedas, which, when chanted, could perform wonderful acts In the present age of Kali, it is not possible to find expert mantra chanters. Therefore, all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas are forbidden in this age. The only sacrifice recommended in this age is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, because in this age it is not possible to accumulate the needed funds for performing sacrifices, not to speak of finding expert brahmanas who can chant the mantras perfectly. Text 33. When Brigamuni offered oblations in the fire, immediately many thousands of demigods named Ribus became manifested. All of them were powerful, having achieved strength from Soma, the moon. It is stated here that many thousands of demigods named Ribus became manifested because of the oblations offered in the fire and the chanting of the hymns from the Yajur Veda. Brahmanas like Bhrigu Muni were so powerful that they could create such powerful demigods simply by chanting the Vedic mantras. Vedic mantras are still available, okay, but the chanters are not. By chanting Vedic mantras or chanting the Gayatri or Rig mantra, one can attain results one desires. In the present age of Kali, it is recommended by Lord Chaitanya that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one can attain all perfection. Okay, so that's a signal to us. We don't have to learn all these other mantras. We just chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama. Like Haridas Thakur. He just chanted Hare Krishna, and he was the greatest of all, let's say, personalities. Okay, text 34. When Ribu demigods attacked the ghosts and guyakas with half-burned fuel from the yajna fire, all these attendants of Sati fled in different directions and disappeared. This was possible simply because the Brahma Tejas, Brahminical power. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Brahma Tejasa used in this verse is significant. In those days, Brahmanas were so powerful that simply by desiring and by chanting a Vedic mantra, they could accomplish very wonderful effects. But in the present age of degradation, there are no such brahmanas. According to the Pancharatrika system, in this age, the entire population is supposed to consist of Sudras, because the Brahminical culture has been lost. But if anyone displays the signs of understanding Krishna consciousness, he should be accepted according to Vaishnava Smriti regulation, okay, as a prospective Brahmana, and should be given all facilities to achieve the highest perfection. The most magnanimous gift of Lord Chaitanya is that the highest perfection of life is available in this fallen age if one simply adopts the process of chanting Hare Krishna, which is able to bring about the fulfillment of all activities in self-realization. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, fourth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Sati Quits Her Body. Well, now it's no doubt that chanting Hare Krishna is the panacea, look that word up, panacea of society. Panacea means it's the ultimate medicine or ultimate solution for all problems.
A solution or remedy for all difficulties or diseases.
Right. Yes. That's why we should all chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we'll go now to chapter 5, frustration of the sacrifice of Daksha. Maitreya said, when Lord Shiva heard from Narada that Sati, his wife, was now dead because of Prajapati Daksha's insult to her, and that his soldiers had been driven away by the Ribu demigods, he became greatly angry. Oh boy, it's getting worse and worse now. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Shiva understood that Sati, being the youngest daughter of Daksha, could present the case of Lord Shiva's purity of purpose and would thus be able to mitigate the misunderstanding between Daksha and himself. But such a compromise was not attained, and Sati was deliberately insulted by her father. Whoa. See what happens when we don't treat people nicely. By not being given properly when she visited, by not being received properly when she visited his house, without being invited. Sati herself could have killed her father, Daksha, because she is the personified material energy and has immense power to kill and create within this material universe. So basically, you don't have the right to kill anyone unless you have the power to regenerate them, bring them back to life. So Sati had that power. But in this case, she's not using it because she's so upset of her father's very callous treatment of her, and especially his abhorrent behavior when it comes to Shiva. In the Brahma Samhita, strength is described. She is capable. Okay. In the Brahma Samhita, her strength is described. She is capable of creating and dissolving many universes. Wow. But although she is so powerful, she acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, that's good. Krishna. As his shadow, it would not have been difficult for Sati to punish her father But she thought that since she was his daughter, it was not proper for her to kill him. Thus, she decided to give up her own body, which she had obtained from his. And Daksha did not even check her. He didn't even try to stop her from doing it. Just shows you how callous Daksha was. When Sati passed away, giving up her body, the news was conveyed by Narada to Lord Shiva. But Shiva was not going to like this at all. Narada always carries the news of such events because he knows their import. He knows how important they are. When Lord Shiva heard that his chaste wife Sati was dead, he naturally became exceedingly angry. Exceedingly angry. He also understood that Brigu Muni had created the Ribu Deva demigods by uttering the mantras of the Yajurveda, and that these demigods had driven away all of his soldiers who were present in the arena of sacrifice. Therefore, he wanted to reply to this insult, and thus he decided to kill Daksha because he was the cause of the death of Sati. Okay, so there's so many things happening here. Uh, people are getting angry and they're taking revenge. Thus, Lord Shiva, being extremely angry, pressed his lips with his teeth and immediately snatched from his head a strand of hair which blazed like electricity or fire. He stood up at once, laughing like a madman, and dashed the hair to the ground. Wow. There's a lot of potency in the hair of a person like Lord Shiva. Text 3. A fearful black demon, as high as the sky and as bright as 3 suns combined, was thereby created. His teeth very fearful, and his hairs on his head like burning fire. He had thousands of arms, equipped with various weapons, and he was garlanded with the heads of men. I definitely don't want to see that guy. When that gigantic demon asked with folded hands, "What shall I do, my lord?" Lord Shiva, who is known as Bhutanatha, directly ordered, "Because you are born from my body, you are the chief of all my associates. Therefore, kill Daksha and his soldiers at the sacrifice." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Now, this is a very important purport, and what's going to be said here is still being active today. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is the beginning of competition between Brahma Tejas and Shiva Tejas. By Brahma Tejas, or Brahminical strength, Brigamuni had created the Ribu demigods, who had driven away the soldiers of Lord Shiva, stationed in the arena. When Lord Shiva heard that his soldiers had been driven away, he created a tall black demon, Virabhadra, to retaliate. There is sometimes a competition between the mode of goodness and the mode of ignorance. That is the way of material existence. Very important statement. Even when one is situated in a mode of goodness, there is every possibility that his position will be mixed with or uh, will be mixed with or attacked by the mode of passion or ignorance. That is the law of material nature. Although pure goodness or Sudasattva is the basic principle in the spiritual world, okay, pure manifestation of goodness is not possible in the material world. Thus, the struggle for existence between different material qualities is always present. This quarrel between Lord Shiva and Bhrigu Muni, centering around Prajapati Daksha, is the practical example of such competition between the different qualitative modes of material nature. Okay, basically, it's the uh, battle between the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, that black person was the personified anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whoa. And he was prepared to execute the orders of Lord Shiva. Thus, considering himself capable of coping with any power offered against him, he circumambulated Lord Shiva. Okay. Text number 6. Many other soldiers of Lord Shiva followed the fierce personality in a tumultuous uproar. He carried a great trident, and fearful enough to kill even death. And on his legs, he wore bangles which seemed to roar. Wow, imagine that. At that time, all the persons assembled in the sacrificial arena, the priests, the chief of the sacrificial performance, and the brahmanas and their wives wondered where the darkness was coming from. Later, they could understand that it was a dust storm, and all of them were full of anxiety. Text 8. Conjecture, meaning guessing, on the origin of the storm, they said, there is no wind blowing. No cows are passing. Nor is it possible that this dust storm could be raised by plunderers, for there is still the strong King Barhi who would punish them. Where is the dust storm blowing from? Is the dissolution of the planet now to occur? Okay. Specifically significant in this verse is Prasina Barhi Jivati. The king of that part of land was known as Barhi. And although he was old, he was still living. And he was a very strong ruler. Thus, there was no possibility of an invasion by thieves and plunderers. Indirectly, is stated here that thieves, plunderers, rogues, and unwanted population can exist only in a state or kingdom where there is no strong ruler. Okay, well, that eliminates our rulers today. When, in the name of justice, thieves are allowed liberty, the state and the kingdom are disturbed by such plunderers and unwanted population. The dust storm created by the soldiers and assistants of Lord Shiva resembled the situation at the time of dissolution of the world, when there is need for the dissolution of the material creation. The function is conducted by Lord Shiva. Therefore, the situation now created by him resembled the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Prasuti, the wife of Daksha, along with the other women, assembled because very anxious
Became
and said,
became very anxious.
oh yeah, not because, became very anxious and said, this danger has been created by Daksha because of the death of Sati, who, even though completely innocent, quit her body as her sisters looked on. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prasuti, being a soft-hearted woman, could immediately understand that the imminent danger approaching was due to the impious activity of hard-hearted Prajapati Daksha. He was so cruel that he would not save her youngest daughter, not save her youngest daughter. Sati from the act of committing suicide in the presence of her sisters. Sati's mother could understand how much Sati had been pained by the insult of her father. Sati had been present along with the other daughters, and Daksha had purposely received all of them but her, because she happened to be the wife of Lord Shiva. This consideration convinced the wife of Daksha of the danger which was now ahead, and thus she knew that Daksha must be prepared to die for his heinous act. Heinous meaning very bad, very horrible act. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flies, as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. Prasuti, who appreciated the power and strength of her son-in-law, Lord Shiva, is describing what he does at the time of dissolution. This description indicates that the strength of Lord Shiva is so great that Daksha's power could not be set in comparison to it. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his trident in hand, dances over the rulers of the different planets, and his hair is scattered just as the clouds are scattered over the directions, in order to plunge the different planets into incessant torrents of rain. In the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. This dance is called the Pralaya dance, or dance of dissolution. Prasuti could understand that the dangers ahead resulted not only from Daksha's having neglected her daughter, but also resulted not only from Daksha's having neglected her daughter, but also because of his neglecting the prestige and honor of Lord Shiva. Well, Daksha made a lot of mistakes. The gigantic black man bared his fearful teeth, and by movements of brows He scattered the luminaries all over the sky, and he covered them with his strong, piercing effulgence. Because of the misbehavior of Daksha, even Lord Brahma, Daksha's father, could not have been saved from the great exhibition of anger. So the movements of his brows is a very significant statement. In some instances, the movements of the brows are a way of demonstrating love and devotion. And in other circumstances, like here, it's to show complete dissatisfaction. So the movement of the brows is the whole science of the movement of the brows. That means, like the hair above the eyes. Text number 12. While all the people talked amongst themselves, Daksha saw dangerous omens from all sides, from the earth and from the sky. In this verse, Daksha has been described as Mahatma. The word Mahatma has been commented upon by different commentators in various manners. Viragava Acharya has indicated that this word Mahatma means steady in heart. That is to say that Daksha was so strong-hearted that even when his beloved daughter was prepared to lay down her life, he was steady and unshaken. But in spite of his being so strong-hearted, he was perturbed when he saw the various disturbances created by the gigantic black demon. Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that even if one is called Mahatma, the great soul, unless he exhibits the symptoms of a Mahatma, he should be considered a Duratma, or a degraded soul. In Bhagavad Gita 9:13, the word Mahatma describes the pure devotee of the Lord. Mahatmanas tamam partha daivim prakritim asritaha. A Mahatma is always under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, how could such a misbehaved person as Daksha be a Mahatma? No, that's a good statement. A Mahatma is supposed to have all the good qualities of the demigods. And thus Daksha, lacking those qualities, could not be called a Mahatma. He should instead be called a Duratma, a degraded soul. The word Mahatma to describe the qualifications of Daksha is used sarcastically. In other words, it's a way of ridiculing him or making fun of him. Okay, so now text number 13. My dear Vidura, all the followers of Lord Shiva surrounded the arena of the sacrifice. They were of short stature and were equipped with various kinds of weapons. Their bodies appeared to be like those of sharks, blackish and yellowish. They ran all around the sacrificial arena and thus began to create disturbances. Okay. They were something like African pygmies. Some of the soldiers pulled down the pillars which were supporting a pandal of sacrifice. Some of them entered the female quarters. Some began destroying the sacrificial arena, and some entered the kitchen and the residential quarters. Oh, now it's getting really bad. They broke all the pots made for use in sacrifice, and some of them began to extinguish the sacrificial fire. Some tore down the boundary line of the sacrificial arena, and some passed urine on the arena. Oh my God, it's completely sacrilegious. Some blocked the way of the fleeing sages. Some threatened the women assembled there, and some arrested the demigods who were fleeing the Pandal. Imagine what that experience would be like. Just as Baladeva knocked down the teeth of Dantavaka, the king of Kalinga, during the gambling match at the marriage ceremony.
Which verse is that?
Huh? Did I miss one page?
17. You should be reading.
Oh, yeah. Maniman, one of the followers of Lord Shiva, arrested Brigamuni and Virabhadra, a black demon, arrested Prajapati Daksha. Another follower, who was named Chandesha, arrested Pusha. Nandishwara arrested the demigod Bala. There was a continuous shower of stones. Oh my God, imagine what that's like. And all the priests and other members assembled at the sacrifice were put into immense misery. For fear of their lives, they dispersed in different directions. Virabhadra tore off the mustache of Brigu, who was offering the sacrificial oblations with his hands in the fire. Wow. So see, this is the origin of the let's say of the animosity between Brahmins and the
Kshatriya.
Kshatriya, yeah. Virabhadra immediately caught Bada, who had been moving his eyebrows during Brigu's cursing of Lord Shiva, and out of great anger, thrust him to the ground and forcibly put out his eyes. Oh my gosh. Just as Baladeva knocked out the teeth of Dantavaka, the king of Kalinga, during the gambling match at the marriage ceremony of Aniruddha, Virabhadra knocked out the teeth of both Daksha, who had shown them while cursing Lord Shiva, and Pusha, who was smiling sympathetically, had also shown his teeth. Here a reference is made to the marriage of Aniruddha, a grandson of Lord Krishna's. He kidnapped the daughter of Dantavakra, and thereafter he was arrested. Just as he was to be punished for the kidnapping, the soldiers from Dwarka arrived, headed by Balarama, and a fight ensued amongst the Kshatriyas. This sort of fight was very common, especially during marriage ceremonies, when everyone was in a challenging spirit. In that challenging spirit, a fight was sure to occur, and in such fights, there was commonly killing and misfortune. After finishing such fighting, the parties would come to a compromise, and everything would be settled. Doesn't sound like a mode of goodness at all. This Daksha Yagya was similar to such events. Now, all of them, Daksha and the demigods, Bhaga and Pusha and Brigumuni, were punished by the soldiers of Lord Shiva. But later, everything would come to a peaceful end. So, this spirit of fighting between one another was not exactly inimical because everyone was so powerful and wanted to show his strength by Vedic mantra or mystic power. All these fighting skills were very elaborately exhibited by the different parties at the Daksha Yajna. Yeah, well, if you have powers like that, you look forward to being able to use them. Right? Otherwise, what's the use of having such powers? Then Virabhadra, the giant-like personality, sat on the chest of Daksha and tried to separate his head from his body with sharp weapons, but was unsuccessful. Wow, just imagine how powerful Daksha was. He tried to cut the head of Daksha with hymns as well as weapons, but still it was hard to cut even the surface of the skin of Daksha's head. Thus, Virabhadra was exceedingly bewildered. Then Virabhadra saw the wooden device in the sacrificial arena by which the animals were to have been killed. He took the opportunity of this facility to behead Daksha. In this connection, it is to be noted that the device used for killing animals in a sacrifice was not designed to facilitate eating their flesh. The killing was specifically intended to give a new life to the sacrificed animal by the power of Vedic mantra. The animals were sacrificed to test the strength of the Vedic mantras. Yagyas were performed as a test of the mantra. Even in the modern age, tests are executed on animal bodies in the physiology laboratory. Okay, that's where they're doing what you would call testing.
Animal testing.
Yeah. Similarly, whether or not the Brahmanas were uttering the Vedic hymns correctly was tested by the sacrifice in the arena. On the whole, the animals thus sacrificed were not at all losers. Why? Because they can be rejuvenated to be young. Some old animals would be sacrificed, but in exchange for their old bodies, they received other new bodies. That was the test of Vedic mantras. Virabhava, instead of sacrificing animals with the wooden device, immediately beheaded Daksha to the astonishment of everyone. Oh, now this is interesting because they're going to regret doing that. And then they put another head on Daksha, but it's going to be the head of a donkey. So you can see that the what you would call surgery was well known in ancient times. Upon seeing the action of Virabhadra, the party of Lord Shiva was pleased and cried out joyfully, and all the Bhutas, ghosts, and demons that had come made a tumultuous sound. On the other hand, the Brahmanas in charge of the sacrifice cried out in grief at the death of Daksha. So this is the genesis of the what you would call competition between Brahmanas and the non-Brahmanas. That's still going on today. Virabhadra then took the head and with great anger threw it into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, offering it as an oblation. In this way, the followers of Lord Shiva devastated all the arrangements for sacrifice. After setting fire to the whole arena, they departed for their master's abode, Kailasha. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, fifth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha, whose head has been cut off and thrown into the sacrificial fire. Wow. Okay, so we'll begin next chapter 6 a little bit.
Yeah, we can maybe cover one or two.
What?
We can cover one or two verses.
Yeah. Chapter 6, Brahma satisfies Lord Shiva. All the priests and other members of the sacrificial assembly and all the demigods, having been defeated by the soldiers of Lord Shiva and injured by weapons like tridents and swords, approached Lord Brahma with great fear. After offering him obeisances, they began to speak in detail of all the events which had taken place. Both Lord Brahma and Vishnu had already known that such events would occur in the sacrificial arena of Daksha. And knowing beforehand, they did not go to the sacrifice. That's a very wise thing. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:26, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna. The Lord says, I know everything that has happened in the past and is going to happen in the future. Lord Vishnu is omniscient, meaning knows everything. And he therefore knew what would happen at Daksha's sacrificial arena. For this reason, neither Narayana nor Lord Brahma attended the great sacrifice performed by Daksha. When Lord Brahma heard of everything from the demigods and the members who had attended the sacrifice, he replied, you cannot be happy in executing a sacrifice if you blaspheme a great personality and thereby offend his lotus feet. You cannot have happiness in that way. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that although Daksha wanted to enjoy the results of fruitive sacrificial activities, it is not possible to enjoy when one offends a great personality like Lord Shiva. It was good for Daksha to have died in the fight, because if he had lived, he would have committed such offenses at the lotus feet of great personalities again and again. According to Manu's law, when a person commits murder, punishment is beneficial for him, because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders and therefore be entangled in his future lives for having killed so many persons. Okay, well, that's the argument of capital punishment. which is still going on today. You have all these, wimpy people that say, "Oh no, you shouldn't kill the prisoners uh, that have raped and killed other people. Yeah, you should just put them in jail, let them pass stool and urine, and eat nicely, 3 meals a day. They have a gym and where they can exercise. And uh, there was this one man. He was in jail, and then they let him out because he did his time in jail, and immediately he committed another crime, so he could go back into the jail because it was better in jail than outside. Because there you don't have to work, you get 3 meals a day, you can exercise in the gym, and I mean nowadays, going to jail is not necessarily a horrible experience because they take care of you, right? Anyway, that's not a good excuse to purposely go to jail. But there are people that go to jail, and then when their time comes, to be released, they go out and immediately commit another crime so they can get back into jail because they learned how to live nicely in jail, right? Okay, so therefore the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. So therefore, that's an argument for capital punishment. Nowadays, you have all these wimpy people that want to abolish capital punishment and keep people alive until they die naturally and waste a lot of money and resources to keep them alive. But it's much better to, when someone is actually a murderer, to actually kill them. All right, you give them due process, but when it's absolutely sure that they committed such a heinous crime, they should be killed. But you have all these wimpy, uh, you know, uh, people that are trying to eliminate capital punishment, and that's really a big mistake. Therefore, the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. There it is, right there. This is the argument against all the wimpy people that want to give up capital punishment. The king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. If those who are extremely offensive are killed by the grace of the Lord, that is good for them. In other words, Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that it was good for Daksha to have been killed. Okay, but Daksha is going to have a new head pretty soon. After his head is going to be cut off and thrown into the fire like a sacrifice. uh, they're going to decide that, okay, let's put back a head, but not the head of a human being. You put the head of a donkey and bring him back alive. Okay, so I think we'll stop right there and pick up tomorrow. The next part is very, very uh, exciting to read. Okay, any
Ma-
questions?
yeah, Maharaj, couple of questions.
Sure.
Maharaj, first thing actually, Shiva knows everything what's happening, present, past, and future also. That's what I was thinking. But here, why Narada is going and telling to Shiva that Sati has quit the body? Why Shiva doesn't? No, Shiva not able to recognize that such a thing is happening. And and that is one question. And the second follow-up question, we see that Vishnu and Brahma knows that's why they didn't come. Why this event would have been avoided, such a uh, big thing, which is what we are trying to learn from here. It's a lot of quarrel is happening. We feel that even at the Devata itself, Devatas in such a high level itself, such a big quarrel is happening. Nobody's helping. It's gone out of control. That's how I started feeling.
That's a very good question. And see, you have to understand that all the pastimes in these Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam scriptures are to educate us of how to do the right thing and also how to recognize and avoid doing the wrong thing. If they don't teach you how to understand and recognize the wrong things, the wrong behavior, then you would not be educated, and you would commit so many heinous crimes and activities. So we're trying to hear the pastimes of exalted personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other persons like Daksha. This is all for our education. So we don't have to kill people and get into, mortal battles, things like that, to understand. We can learn vicariously by the experience of other people. And that's what we're doing here by hearing all these things today and in this section. We're learning about the danger of becoming angry and losing control of your mind and senses and killing people and insulting people. All these things are very bad, but there's consequences. So even if these people are exalted personalities, we're seeing the consequences when they cannot control their anger. Okay. And that's why, the last verse we read, it says, when Lord Brahma heard everything from the demigods and the members who had attended the sacrifice, he replied, you cannot be happy in executing a sacrifice if you blaspheme a great personality. Okay, there it is. And thereby offend his lotus feet. You cannot have happiness in that way. Well, that's what's going on. They're insulting a great personality like Daksha, and even worse, Lord Shiva. So it is not possible to enjoy when one offends a great personality like Lord Shiva. It's good for Daksha to have died in a fight, because if he had lived, he would have committed such offenses at the lotus feet of great personalities again and again. Yeah, so that's why there's capital punishment also. If a person murders someone, they put him in jail, and then they let him out after a few years, he'll go out and kill somebody else. So the best thing is to have capital punishment for people who commit murders. Because if you let them out, they'll murder other people, and that's happened. That has happened sometimes a murderer is given, let's say, pardon, and they get out of jail, and they go out and they kill again. Okay, so therefore it says, according to Manu's law, when a person commits murder, the punishment is beneficial for him because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders and therefore be entangled in his future lives for having killed so many persons. There it is. That's the argument right there for capital punishment. Let me read that again. According to Manu's law, so in the Manu Samhita, when a person commits murder, punishment is beneficial for him because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders and therefore be entangled in his future lives for having killed so many persons. Therefore, the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. If those who are extremely offensive are killed by the grace of the Lord, that is good for them. In other words, Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that it was good for Daksha to have been killed. So that's the argument for capital punishment. Hard, what do they call it? Hard punishment for hard crime. So anyone who wants to abolish capital punishment is nonsense. And there's so many wishy-washy people that militate to give up capital punishment. And therefore, there are many countries that have given up capital punishment. It's a big mistake. Okay, so here's the argument for capital punishment. Right here in Manu's law, when a person commits murder, punishment is beneficial for him. Because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders, and therefore be entangled in his future lives for having killed so many persons. Therefore, the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. All right, so if anybody argues to uh, uh, stop capital punishment, you just read this Canto 4, Chapter 6, verse number 4 in the Shastra. The Shastra emphatically recommends capital punishment. There should be hard, what you would call punishment for hard crime. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. Are there any questions? You'll see, I mean, it's amazing. You'll see people, when someone's going to be killed for killing other people, a whole bunch of people come and they'll demonstrate and that, oh, this is wrong, don't kill him, blah, blah, blah. It's complete nonsense. So you see, capital punishment is permitted in the Shastras. And if you don't, it's actually bad for the person that's committed that murder.
It shows sympathy to the person who's committed crime.
Yeah.
And then they justify.
Yeah. What about the the relatives, the person that was killed, murdered? It's horrible. Sometimes there have been examples of murderers who were let out of jail in the United States. Not regularly, but there are some examples. Why don't you look it up? Murderers who have been let out of jail. I guess they have a very good lawyer or something like that. And what do? They get out of jail and they kill somebody else. It's happened. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. You see anything?
Just typing. Yeah, there are cases. So they have been released from prison for various reasons, including parole, sentence completion, wrongful convictions, clemency or commutation, and plea bargains. And few notable cases are Norman Parker, convicted of murder in Florida, released on parole after serving 22 years. Maryville, UK, convicted of killing 2 children at age 11, released at 23 with a new identity. Carla, former involved in the murder of several victims with Paul Bernardo, released after serving 12 years due to a plea deal. And then Austria, Jack Unterweger, convicted murderer, released after 15 years only to kill again.
All of them or just the last
The
one?
last one.
Yeah.
killing.
Only to kill again. Yeah, and really. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll stop right there on capital punishment and pick it up tomorrow.
Very good.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We'll see you again.
Haribol Prabhu, thank you.
Yeah.